Hello, thanks for tuning into this episode. Before we start, FinTech Focus TV is brought to you by Harrington Starr, global leaders in financial technology recruitment. Head to the Harrington Starr website and check the links below so you can download the latest copy of the Financial Technologist magazine. And also, we've got the TradFi and DeFi Era of Convergence documentary coming up. If you're interested in the merger of the two, please get in touch. Thanks a lot and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today it's a double header. I'm delighted to introduce you to Des and Mike from Portabl. Guys, how are you?
Super good for Monday.
Super good. There you go. And on a Monday as well. Yeah. That's a good sign.
Three coffees helps.
When I start my Monday with a speeding ticket, that's always a good sign, isn't it? But it's only gone up from here with you guys coming in to speak to us. Listen, loads and loads. We've been talking a little bit beforehand and we had to be sort of reined in from all of this. So we're saving all the good stuff for now. There's loads and loads to unpack. But before we get into that, just give us, the audience a little bit of intro to the pair of you. Tell us who you are, what you do, where you come from, and we'll start from there.
Hey, so thanks, Toby. Des Matthewman, co-founder at Portabl. I'm the techie and the geek part of the GEO Act.
Or brains or beauty, we're not sure.
We'll go with either.
You're both.
I spent 10 years as an independent worker contractor. I was a software engineer. I went permanent, worked inside employee benefits for nearly 20 years in the city here. And then left corporate to go my own way, and that's part of the story. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing all about that in a second. Mike?
Yeah, look, he always leaves out the best nugget. He took that employee benefits platform from 0 users to 1 million actives. So
it was amazing.
Black belt technologies.
Great story.
Lucky to have him at Portabl. Founder at Portabl. Not dissimilar to Des. I did 20 years in FinTech before it was called FinTech.
Yeah.
So been around a little while. But as a contractor.
What did you used to call it?
Contracting. I was a contractor in working in banks, but it was around trading systems and risk management, mumbo jumbo. But I always wanted to do my own thing. So my wife calls it a midlife crisis, and at the very wrong age and the very wrong time probably, kicked off a startup, health tech data analytics, ran it for a few years. I didn't know it at the time, but it was also involved in this whole future of workspace. Took that across under acquisition. And I think I lasted about 8 hours on day one in the induction, and this sort of American corporate to think, oh dear,
it's not.
I've got the itch to go again. Unfortunately, some research crossed my deck pretty soon after that around the whole future of work, which I know we're going to be getting into in a little bit more detail. And that was where the ideas for Portabl were born, and here we are.
Perfect. Well, look, you mentioned it there, and it's a great position to start. I think the future of work's fascinating. I've got a son who's just this week, tonight, going out there to look at his A-level choices and such like, and it's a really different world that people are going into. When you look at the university degrees that what their jobs effectively move to, it becomes really, really interesting to say, actually, I think some of those jobs are less relevant than they've ever been before, and some of the ones which aren't even on the curriculum for it are things there which people just haven't even potentially thought of yet. And we're doing some work. Nadia, who I know you've spoken to, is doing a lot of work with universities to try and upskill them for the FinTech revolution. But take that aside of it and look at the future of work and say the gig economy and contracting for full stop. You've told me some stats at the start of this. Tell us about why Portabl is relevant right now.
Well, the headline stat back in the day, and this was only 18. And they were talking about by 23, so in 5 years' time, 50% of the world's workforce were going to be working independently in some shape or form.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were interested in the sort of the gig economy and how that was sort of opening up and exploding, Deliveroo, Uber, the freelance economy out the back of that. But now, hybrid, flexible, remote, portfolio lifestyle, self-employed, this is where this 50% number's coming from, and COVID's only going to accelerate that shift in movement. It's funny, my daughter must be the same age because we're looking at A-levels and the universities are talking about you're going to go on to do, a career and a job. Companies and full-time employment is shrinking, and this new way of working, we talked about the future of work at the start. I reckon it's actually the future of work/life, because work and life just becoming so intertwined.
Yeah.
And that's not going to go away. So it's a hot topic, which means Portabl was interesting before COVID because the sort of future of work, people could see into it, moving towards flexibility. But COVID has only accelerated that, and I don't think there's any going back now. So we're interested not just in the 50% of the workers who are working out there away from FTE, but actually a total workforce concept. You're doing a great job looking after your full-time employees, but there's now this whole other really valuable part of your workforce that needs to be totally integrated more and more, because it's going to be moving that way, not back towards.
You see, this is an evolution, right? Because I think contractors, as you all know, particularly in the financial services, have been guns for hire traditionally, right? And as I think life has moved on, people are thinking about it more and more about the longevity of those contracts and how they can get them entwined into it. And there is the quick project, move in, move out sort of element to it, but there's also those contractors in a very different world from what we've looked at the moment. And having come from a background where you've seen seen a very perm heavy side of benefits and sort of that, tell us about the sort of issue that you saw out there in the marketplace and how you guys are saying this is something which we can do better.
Yeah, well, we know that as an employee, there's all these structures that look after you, and then the moment you're an independent, there's no structures.
The next day,
it all
nothing.
goes. And in fact, actually, industry takes a different look at you. The day you were an employee, your ability to your credit rating and risk was high.
Exactly right,
you could, and how you were underwritten, you were very low risk as part of a big collective of employees. And the moment you go out on your own, it just inverts. You know, and it's difficult because your credit score's low and your risk is high. So we need to solve that. We need to make that parity between an employee and a flexible worker. Why shouldn't it be the same? Why shouldn't a flexible worker have the same types of structures and benefits that employees have? And in fact, if you're looking at a whole of workforce and you need them to be loyal and content and working hard for you, you need to bring that parity together. You can't just focus on the one side. So that's what we're trying to solve. We are bringing essentially that old world of employee benefits into the new world of independent workers and providing them the structures that they need so that they can crack on and do a good job without fear of what's going to happen if I'm unwell.
And you've got two stakeholders there. You've got the contractors themselves, but also the companies who employ those contractors who are both winning from this. Tell us how you satisfy both sides and what's the benefits to them, for both parts who are involved.
We've come to it. It just works exactly the same way as Des said. We're taking the employee benefits from the old world into the new world. Instead of being an employee of Portabl, you're a member of Portabl, and we're able to recreate those structures. So just as a good employer is interested in attraction, retention, engagement, productivity, health and well-being, that's the structures that we're looking to create over on this side of the fence, which, as you mentioned, good for the individual and their family, means it's good for the client company and good for the introducer of that whole relationship up front. So from our point of view, we're creating this ecosystem which we genuinely believe is a win, and therefore a sustainable business model. Because that independent, the day they leave an organisation, it's stacked against them from day one, and there's no reason for it to be that way because it's the same person with the same networks, the same skill set, on the same trajectory. And arguably now, if they take on 1, 2 or 3 clients, are almost better risk than the person who's just got that one connection back to them.
And let's go back to, we were talking about our kids, and what if one of our kids wanted to start off with portfolio or a couple of roles? It's quite possible that that's what they're going to take on. And the independent workers, they're going to start out with no structure, no benefits. Whereas if they started as an employee, they would be put into them automatically. So we need to get these in place so that, for instance, our kids can start from the very beginning being supported in a way that's relevant to them. So just like in employee benefits, we've got different demographics and we need to look after them differently so that we really get engagement and do the right, and each pound we spend on them, we're maximizing that cost. It's the same thing. We need to look after a young independent differently than potentially a baby boomer that's retired and coming back into the workplace because, I don't know, maybe they've run out of pension money or they're bored and they've still got another 5 years of value to give, you know. They need different things, different structures. So it's very similar to employee benefits, but no one's solving those problems for the independents. And these people coming into independence, there's a bit of a barrier there.
Yeah.
We need to remove that barrier and know, well, look,
And the barrier being the concern about what that actually means for all the reasons you've spoken about, their security, their the benefits which come into that whole thing, whole aspect of what's this mean.
Yeah. So if your child starts a job, you'll say, well, what are the benefits? And I mean, it's going to be like one of your second questions probably after what you're going to earn. And why aren't we saying the same thing when you become an independent worker? How are you going to, what benefits are you going to get?
And this is even more relevant, I guess, after recent reforms and R35 and everything like that as well. And obviously more changes coming into that. There's it spells volatility whichever way you look at it.
Yes.
And that's uncertainty basically has moved people away from that contracting space at various different stages where there's very much an appetite, as you say, with a growing reason to do it. And there's a lot of reasons for the companies to get that right as well. To be able to put those sort of that sort of talent in with a turn on basis.
Give people a bit of confidence to take that leap of faith to go into this line of work.
Because I think if you think about it, there's a lot of whenever you look at great places to work and all the stuff, we're doing something similar at the moment with our magazine about the top 1% workplace awards.
Okay.
When we look at that sort of stuff within the space, it's always very much geared by nature to permanent employees. But you're not necessarily looking at it from a contractor basis, but again, probably just because that's the way it's always been. So going back to the company, and you mentioned that...
Can I quickly chip in there? So we did a proof of concept with a big US insurer, and it was really interesting. They had a large employee population, 70,000, but they actually had 30,000 independent workers working within their business. They actually had 10,000 of that 30,000 were nearly their most key people in their organization at that point in time, because they were working on big transformation projects.
That's the whole point of it,
yeah.
right?
And these people were driving change in their business. They couldn't actually employ them as employees because they had skill sets that they just didn't want to become employees, AWS architects, whatever, and whatnot. But these independents were absolutely key in that business to transforming itself. So, they knew that they needed to look after these people.
Yeah, that's an amazing piece, which you just don't think the critical nature of those individual people within the business.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a question which has just been popping into my head as you've been talking through this. Talk to me, and as we talk about, what makes a good place to work for contractors, and having run that world for yourself and seen probably the good, the bad, the ugly in that too. What is a great place to work for a contractor? What should people be looking for when they look at a company and say, this is the sort of place I want to be working?
I think it's no different. We say you do a great job looking after your FTE. Consider now extending that across the other, because arguably the other is working on some pretty significant stuff for you. Also, your business might be migrating towards less FTE over time and sort of backfilling with contingent project or seasonality or requirements of the business. And against the whole backdrop then of the sort of the competition for talent that's going on, it's really competitive for this other section of the workforce. So you have to sort of almost be, as a baseline, providing some pretty substantial stuff in some pretty different ways to be in the conversation, because we know there are other companies out there that are beginning to take this total workforce point of view and coming at it from the bottom up. The independents, salary and day rate's important, but they are very much interested in the other, and certainly as a result of COVID, because they were the ones that got caught out. There wasn't furlough available to them, the assistance packages and so forth, so it fell heavily back onto them, and not particularly keen to go through that going forward. And also now, as this sort of change, this revolution, this paradigm shift has been going on, some other factors are starting to come into the game: health and wellness, mental health support, people who are working outside of the formal structures, and it doesn't matter if it's an FTE or an independent, working at home, sitting around their kitchen bench, talking to themselves, bouncing off the questions, starting to all internalise. So I think, again, mental health support, health and well-being as part of a total workforce is a pretty nice thing to be doing. Everyone loves to know that they're cared and thought about by the organisation in some shape or form, so it's probably almost just good practice.
I think that's been the sort of stigma around this for a while, isn't it? A contractor is seen as a sort of a maverick, a sort of, you know, a gun for hire, a mercenary who comes in and you know, does the job and then moves out from it. But I think that's changed a lot over the last few years.
We have to change that, you know. Old school thinking, I'm chucking a lot of money at this expensive person. That's good enough. That's it. Job done. It's not. You know. And just like when I ran full-time employees, I was in corporate myself, and I'm in a massively competitive environment. Being in the city here, that's where we used you very successfully back in the past. To get quality people into our business, but you know, keeping those people was really difficult. At a point in time, it wasn't about money. You know, they could have left my business and got 10 grand more somewhere else, but essentially saying to them, you can come in whenever you want. You can come in at 11 o'clock. You know, that was the flexibility. You can work from home a day a week. You know, back in 2015, this was like this was worth more than 10 grand. You know, they stayed because of that. You know, and we've got to learn that when there's talent, and it doesn't matter the contract that they're working through, whether it's permanent or flexible, you want to retain them in your business, and it's not just about the bottom line money that you put at them. It's how you make them feel, you know, and that they want to stay. And so you've got to put structures sometimes that aren't just, you know, about bottom line, you know, pounds in their pocket, that make them feel I want to stay here. You know, I like this. I like what they're doing for me.
This is incredibly important as well, isn't it? Because I think this is there's going to be a switch in the market over the last couple, you know, for the last 12, 18 months, we've been in a situation where there is a huge demand from the market for people, and there just isn't simply the talent to be able to fulfill all the need from it. And I think there's a hubris fed by the press that there's going to be this new world where everyone can pick and choose their, you know, the best talent, and it's going to be a slightly, you know, a drop in demand as the economy tightens up, etc., etc., and suddenly the onus swings back to the employer, who can then be, you know, judge and executioner within their decision making. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one is I still think people are going to be discerning about who they work for and why they work for them. Number two is I see an amazing you know, gap in between skills and demand, and where tech and digital is moving alongside that as well. And number three is, I think if you look at the last couple of years and you've seen what's happening in the marketplaces, there has been a number of companies who've grown irrespective of this. So whether it's long, whether it's shallow, whether there's a recession, whether there's not a recession, who knows what a recession is or not is, how long Ukraine happens for, whether there's energy, etc., etc., etc. Whatever happens here, you're still looking at an environment there where talent's short. And I think that, again, speaking of hubris, employers have looked at it and said, yeah, we'll fight for that talent and we'll put the full story out when we're looking for permanent employees. And when it comes to contractors, we'll pay them the money. But that's changing as well, because that's still the same issue.
Yep.
There's still a shortage of talent in that contracting space, and if you want the people who are going to transform your business and generally working in projects that are that important, they have to be seduced and attracted and retained in exactly the same way, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's it. We talk about old school, new school. Every sort of consulting group out there is consulting into business around that concept of liquid workforce, contingent workforce, right sizing, downsizing, backfilling now with a sort of a flexible element, or technology is going to replace it. So this world of work is shifting in that direction, and that's how now people are choosing to work and to live. So you've got to get your head into the game for the future.
Yeah. That's
Suggestion.
where you guys come
Hey,
into it.
and what a surprise. Yeah.
And tell us how it's been going.
Look, it's good. I think, well, you startup founder, it's always good, right? You've got to be optimistic, but it's been a journey, it's fair to say. And when we first kicked this off,
It's 2019, isn't it?
2019, and it was based on this McKinsey research about this movement towards this space. And at the time it was, gig and freelance, or gig especially, I think that was driving the numbers. But underneath that was this whole layer, and Des mentioned it before, when we think of that spectrum now, it is sort of blue collar, millennial, Deliveroo, Uber down one end, but down the other end of the spectrum, baby boomers, people who've retired at 60, 65, they either can't afford their 30-year retirement, so coming back in and picking up bits and pieces, or they can afford their retirement, but they've still got that 10, 20 years of value. So they're doing high value consulting work, portfolio lifestyle. So it's a combination of that and that coming back in, which is really driving the numbers. From the opportunity point of view, it was around, okay, you've got this massive market. It was interesting before COVID, and our story was part of that. We were due to close our first round of funding in March 2020,
timing's everything, isn't
which
it?
was luck and timing, and it all fell apart because March 2020 didn't happen.
Yeah.
We were like, well, this is bonkers because the market and so forth and the opportunity in front. So we stuck at it, only to sort of get through that, to find out we were becoming now increasingly popular for different reasons, because the whole COVID was just accelerating hybrid, flexible, remote.
It's amazing, isn't it? That sort of the gift that takes away can sometimes be the gift that gives at the same time.
It sounds wrong to say it, but COVID was ironically good for the business.
It's
on the
the
one
same
hand.
for so many businesses. I mean, it's when you think about how everything that everyone went through for it, at the same sort of stage, I think when you've got a negative like that, you've got to look at positives for it. So we've never shied away from saying let's look for opportunity with every business that we've been speaking to. And actually, that was the FinTech Focus when it really sort of gained traction, was about us saying, look, let's give some positives to all the negatives out there. Let's look at how people can win in that sort of circumstance. And I think when you've been given that sort of opportunity at that stage, there's a responsibility to basically, really grow into it, right?
Just that responsibility. I mean, that became our mission. Our folks, independent contractors, freelancers, self-employed, were getting smashed as a result of this, and we knew that they would, because they just didn't have any of the support structures, which is what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, so look, where it's really positive, we've got a platform. We onboard product providers and customers and freelancers, independent workers all through this. I'm particularly pleased because we do it through just function. There's no developers needed in the back end, so we've built it out really well. We've built it with global.
COVID gave us time to concentrate on build.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Global in mind. Yeah. We can create different tenants in different regions, so that's super good. I'm going to care about that because been there, done it with employee benefits. I know what we need to do from the ground up, so that it's a really sustainable ecosystem going forward. But we've got at the moment 8 product providers signed up, a big pipeline and what's really exciting is we've got some really novel features. So for instance, being a member of Portabl, you automatically get income protection and life cover, no underwriting questions asked. Like, that's unique for independent workers. The moment that they look at those types of products, they have to go into an underwriting questionnaire that typically could end up 150 questions, even for a low value of cover. So we've got a core level of cover for all our members. No questions asked. Just like an employee, when you join a company, you get core benefits. It's the same thing. So some really exciting things. Loads of products on the way to be able to deploy to solve this problem that we're trying to tackle. So that all that gets my tail wagging.
That was, see it in your eyes.
Turning the negative of loss of time into stuff that we could actually control.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us up to now. Ironically, timing's perfect. Because this market is only getting bigger by the day. The understanding of it, the no going back to the old world, which means as we are literally launching now, onboarding first customers and looking for more to collaborate with. I don't know. Does it make us look wise because we've timed our run perfectly? It wasn't. It was just complete.
You need lucky generals, right?
Oh, jeez.
Luck and timing. Timing's everything, but that's often the case with businesses and how they move and everything, isn't it? So let's let's sort of take the journey further forward. So you're at this phase now where you've got this perfect timing, a great opportunity in the marketplace. Tell us some of the priorities. I know that you guys are going through. You mentioned funding earlier on. That's the next phase for it. What's that look like, and how can people help there?
We're positively overwhelmed, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. From a business, right?
Yeah.
It's positive on the one hand, but if you're overwhelmed, so we say we need to be twice as big, twice as fast. So we're sort of raising for an accelerated growth kind of story. We're still in that sort of angel pre-seed space. So we say we're 50 grand from glory. What does that mean? Well, sort of we're building out now a strong bench of angel investors, sort of advisory board kind of structure. We see our Series A moment being in the next 12 months. Between now and there, it's nothing more than customers getting that great feedback, which has been really positive, and hitting the milestones necessary. So.
And when you look at angels and investors at that sort of stage, I think there's this is the thing which again, when you talk about accelerators and things that can move really well. Sometimes when you talk about those board advisors and the right investors at the right time,
exactly.
The thing that I've seen really vehemently over the last couple of years is that companies who get the right investors at the right sort of stage, who can be properly invested into the business, and I'm not talking about financially.
They bring their networks.
I'm
It's
talking
not just
about
their finances.
the right investors within it.
Yep.
Tell us what that looks like for you. Who would be the sort of ideal portfolio for people to come in and get involved with you guys?
We talked about it because what do you say? You kiss 100 frogs to find your prince or princess, and we've done that, and we've landed on what we call our people. They get it, and I'd say they're your people as well. The community you're building here, they're in the HR space. They understand, attraction, retention, churn of talent. They just get what we're trying to build and what we're trying to deliver. They've got those problems within their existing business. They've built businesses out the back of that.
They're looking at future models and understand there's massive value, and there's a massive slice of the pie to go at that. Actually, there isn't that much competition in it. If you look at the old employee benefit, massively competing market. Who's competing in this new market?
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity.
So it's that early mover advantage, isn't it? Yeah.
And then within it, we're a dash of fintech because it's about putting financial services, credit, mortgage assistance in front of our folks, getting them set up with a bank account. We're a dash of insurance because there's a protection piece around that. Definitely health and wellbeing. Yeah. So all of a sudden it becomes pretty messy on the one hand, but on the other hand, it comes back to that core audience. It's a SaaS-based platform, so there's something in there for the sort of the techie investor as well, and but really
something for everyone is what you're saying.
Something for everyone, but so are we. Because we're looking after the health, the wealth, the work, and the life of these individuals, just to free them up to be good for themselves and their family.
Also kind of nearly reflect on what are the people that don't really get it. Look, there's a lot of value in creating widgets, what I mentioned, and people that think this paradigm can be solved with a widget. There's quite a few people actually that's what they fascinate on, and this is an ecosystem play. It's quite a big play, so you can spend a lot of time with those people and not really get anywhere, and that's what we've learned. So we've learned when Mike says our people, it's people that really get the future of work paradigm. This
the value
potential,
of an independent.
the value of independent workers.
We were talking about this before, weren't we? And you've mentioned sort of ecosystem a couple of times in this conversation. You've mentioned our people. We were talking beforehand about our synergies, about the belief around community and such like. Let's sort of finish with a little bit of an ode to community. Because I think another interesting part of this is contractors has been a sort of lonely man's game, for a long time. And it's like you go into that and you are. As I say, the gun for hire, the sole trader, etc., and it's sort of given away in the name there. But I think that what you're talking about here is a hell of a lot of benefit for people to come together and be able to, add value and build forward.
If I reflect on my experience when I was an independent worker, there was no community for me. I was out on my own. And the moment I became an employee, there was a path there for my career progression. I could use ethnographic observation to see how my colleagues got better and climbed up the corporate ladder, and I could learn from that. And there's a pathway there. and independents don't have that, and they don't have that that community to help them build themselves and improve their value proposition, and we're bringing them all together on a community platform so that they can interact with each other, to learn, to observe, to be able to see people have done it, they can do it, this is how they did it, and help improve their own,
And
you
the
know,
communities-
whether it's through learning or whatever it is.
Actually, part of our secret sauce, our pitch back to industry is we take a highly fragmented group of individuals, we bring them together as part of our community, which is great for them, but then that also enables us to get group buying power kicking in. So that's kind of the secret sauce to the business model. But as Des said, we've had over 1,000 conversations. Community and connection came through so strongly, so powerfully. It's a third of our proposition.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I could be talking about this for a long time. So I want to finish with that there are obviously people, you know, contractors need to be speaking to you. The companies who hire contractors need to speak to you. Investors need to be speaking to you at the moment. Tell us who should be reaching out, and what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn.
Yeah, always a good start.
Portabl, spelled trying to be cool without the E on the end, but some people get that, some people don't.
You're a .co as well, aren't you?
And a .co again, trying to be clever. Work in progress. We're absolutely about now customers. Our business model is B2B2C. So it's organisations who've got a vested and financial interest in their interim, their contractor base, their membership, their customers. That's important for us. Collaborating and working with our first customers just to try and solve some of these challenges for them. We've got some pretty compelling ROI to share back to a customer. You know, you retain one of these folks in the market, and it kind of Portabl washes its face for you as a business. And then you know, angel investors there or thereabouts who are passionate about this space and just want to go on that fingers crossed exciting journey towards Series A. But make no mistake, startups are a journey.
Yeah, they definitely are, and and that's the excitement, that's the fun of it. I mean, I know there's a whole other show to talk about your actual journey and the lessons taken on that, and that's probably something we should chalk in the diary in the next couple of months to get involved as well. But time's beaten us on that one. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I think, you know, from everything you're talking about, it just clicks, doesn't it? You know, I love the simplicity of certain businesses and how you can look at it and say this is solving an absolute problem and creating a solution. So sometimes it's solving problems, sometimes it's creating better solutions and better pathways.
Yep.
And I think you probably fall into both of those categories. So guys, I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the journey. Good luck with the raise, good luck with everything else you're doing. It sounds like it's fantastic, and thanks for coming on the show today. Really good to see you. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.